Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, really want to thank all of you for taking the time out of a really busy schedule to think about the future and to join us. We recognize that we're living in unprecedented times, and our goal with the symposium is to share out and help support each other as a community throughout California, the rest of the country, and even the world, as we've had international people participate. And the way that we do that is through gathering as a community and sharing resources with one another. And that's where the presentation proposals really come into play. And so we're really excited to have you here and want to have this be a fun, interactive experience. We're going to moderate through the chat primarily until we get to the formal Q&A, but please, as you have questions come up during during the discussion, please feel free to type them into the chat, and we'll raise them up and address them. And to start, before I hand it over to our primary presenter, Karen, wanted to reflect on the last few weeks. And I know a lot of people have been doing a lot more cooking at home than they maybe used to, and was wondering, and we'll share this out in the recap email, I was wondering if anyone wants to share something they've been cooking recently that they've really enjoyed, or if they have a link to a recipe, just something light to kick us off, and then we'll dive in. So for me personally, I've been working on pesto sauce with basil and garlic and olive oil and nuts. So that's been a fun thing, and I'll throw a link in a minute to a recipe. But if other people have fun items that they've been cooking as of late, we'd love to hear you chime in via the chat. And if you have a link to a recipe, we'll share that out later. So feel free to chime in the chat. And then to help us get started, as people, excuse me, to help us get a sense of who is in the audience, I'm going to launch a quick poll. So we're just going to take a quick minute. This will be really helpful in terms of getting a sense of who's in the audience. And if you can just share your experience with the symposium, that'd be greatly appreciated, as it'll really help us cater the conversation to everyone that's here. Okay, I'm gonna give it 5 more seconds, and then I'm gonna close the poll and share the results. The exciting thing is that it's a pretty broad audience of folks with different experiences. So we have a lot of people that have attended. We have some people that have presented. We have some people that this will be their first time presenting, and some people that this would be their first time attending. This is really exciting. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Karen Warner, and she's going to guide us through today's discussion.
Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad to be able to be here with you. And I look forward to, this is reminding me of when I was a classroom teacher, how when people come into the classroom, they come with a lot of different experiences. And looking at the poll, I can tell that I've got a varied audience. So it's my intent to be able to answer all your questions. And by the time we get to 9:30, that you'll feel confident that you can submit the proposal that you would like, or proposals. So I am the STEAM program manager at the foundation. And as one of my roles is that I'm really here to help presenters, and so I will be your primary contact going forward. At the end of this, I will give you all my contact information, so if you need to contact me directly, feel free to. So the things we're going to cover before we jump right into go into the submission site, I've got recommendations and tips. And the first thing I wanted to just point out is that one of the things as a presenter, you really want to think about not only your content, which you all are the content experts, but how are you going to help the participants to learn? And so there's three different ways that we are thinking that people are going to want to learn. And so it's for you to think about which of these ways tends to work best for you. So hands-on activities where people are building things, making things, getting to try things. An interactive participation type of presentation where people are really getting engaged and going in and trying things. And then facilitated collaborations where small groups may be working together to solve a problem. The other thing that we survey every year are participants, and what's telling us very clearly that they want actionable takeaways, things that they can use in their own context. So if they're a classroom teacher, they want templates and lesson ideas, and maybe it's something as simple as a handout that could give them some guidance for scaffolding. Others are really wanting a deep dive of resources. Maybe these are some research that your presentation is based on. Maybe it's websites that you want to share with them. And then they also want a way to connect with you. So that they have this takeaway, they try it, they want to be able to get back with you to share their excitement and how it went, or maybe they have some questions because things didn't go exactly as planned. So those are three top things that the participants are telling us that they want. So I have some tips for you. We have every year with the symposium an app that participants use in order to navigate their own adventure of going through the symposium, different breakout sessions. And so I recommend that you use a really catchy title, because it's difficult for participants to sometimes make a decision and for you to draw the participants to your session. A catchy title can go a long way. So I have here on the right-hand side of the slide some ideas from last year that people use these as their titles, and people really seem to respond to something that tells them what they're going to see, but does it in an interesting way. And another thing we're going to be looking at is for the reviewers, every presentation does get reviewed multiple times. And so we do have a character max. You do not need to go to the max. And so I just pulled this presentation description as one that is what I call pithy. It's forceful. It gets right to the point. It's not that it's just, 2 or 3 sentences so that the reviewer would not be able to envision exactly what you're thinking. You'll be able to give as the participant experience. But it's also not paragraph after paragraph. It needs to get to the point because our reviewers are having to look at multiple ones. And so to not exhaust them, we ask that this description, one of the things I like about it, has the goal, talks about the grade levels, it talks about what content standards it addresses, and how the participants will be seeing demonstrations. They will actually be building something, and they're talking about best practices, and in the end they're going to be connecting this kind of lesson to the outside world, outside of the classroom. So in just a number of sentences, they get to the point.
And I'll just add that you can also just do it in bullet format. If it's easier to do it in bullet format, we welcome that as well. Whatever's easy, but keep in mind the length being in that kind of 5 to 8 sentence range.
And then you'll also have a chance to give a brief description, and this is used for our app. So participants will not see your detailed description. That is only for the reviewers. And so here, from what you saw before, which was the detailed description, here's the brief description. So just to give you an idea of the kind of language you could use and how much language, because the app has a limit on how many characters it can actually fit into your description. And I would suggest too, when you're creating your presentation, to remember an image. A lot of times icons and images can really get the point across, because participants are telling us they don't really want to be read to. They, give them the gist, and they're really there to hear you speak as the expert, and to experience what you've provided with other participants in a collaborative way. So I promise this will not be the 3-hour tour. We will get started jumping right into a guided tour of the website for the submissions.
And as that's loading up, we have a question about, do presenters get free admission to the conference? Districts are anticipating limited conference budgets. We are currently dual planning the event, so there's scenarios in which we host in person depending on how things shake out, but there's also a very high likelihood of this being a virtual event. There will not be free admission for presenters, but if we do go virtual, the pricing will be significantly reduced and will enable people to access from all over the country and the world as presenters as well as participants.
Thank you, Glennon. So when you enter the website, the landing page is here, which is the welcome, which you may have already seen, and that might be how you registered for today. What you are interested in is the Create a Submission button. Now, I've logged in before, and if you have not already created an account, this is where you would do that. You'll just, of course, need to do that one time. My recommendation here, enter in the email address that you want to be used for notifications for the STEAM Symposium. So when we want to send out additional information, when we're ready to send out acceptance, or whether you're on the wait list, as a presenter, consider which of these, of all your email addresses, maybe it's work, maybe it's personal, it's up to you, but be sure you put the one in here that is related to where you want to get your notifications. Since I've already created an account, I can just log in. So the next landing page for me is my submissions page. And for your first time, there will not be anything here, so you would just click Create Submissions. I do just want to show you, I've created some drafts as I've been practicing. I've also created a couple of presentations here, and it is not just a draft. Here it says draft, but also because I have a confirmation number and the date submitted. So we've had times in the past where people, well, I submitted my presentation, but they hadn't actually clicked at the end, that submit button. And until you get a confirmation number, it is not actually submitted to us to then put out for review. And when you want to come in and, let's say, edit, this is where you would be able to go back in. After you submit, you can always go back in and change things until June 17th, which is our deadline. So you have from now until end of day, June 17th, to make your edits. And then after that, changes won't be possible.
You should also receive an email as part of the confirmation. Sometimes it does end up in spam, but like Karen showed you, in your submissions, you'll have a confirmation number and a date submitted. So that's how we know that, that's how we get notified that it's complete.
Right, so you'll have 3 chances to see this confirmation number. When you finish your submission, it'll come up and say, congratulations, and here's your confirmation number. And then it'll say, and you'll be getting an email. So it's after you finish the submission, you'll get it. In an email afterwards, you'll get it. And then you can come back here and check on it. And so there's 3 different places you can look for your confirmation number. So for the first time, though, you'll come in and all you'll see is Create a Submission button. And there's 2 main parts to submitting a proposal. The first part is where it wants to know about you, and the second part is where it wants to know about your presentation. So this first landing page is asking you, are you the primary presenter? So we've had some times in the past where somebody had someone else for them, maybe an admin, put in the presentation for them. And if that's the case, that's fine, but we need to know their contact information, because as I said before, anything that goes out is going to go to that email address, and you want to make sure that it's your email address that you would be getting notifications about the symposium. So since I am the primary presenter, I'm going to click yes. It already pulls in information about me because of my login information. Anytime you see the red star, that means that is something that is a requirement. Everything else here is optional for you to put in. And then this is the information that's going to be used for notifications. That's just reminding you that. And the next part, these are things that will be pulled into the app afterwards, after submission, and when you get accepted, we'll pull in your biography and your profile image. So please at least put your position, title, and your organization there. And you can always add it later, add to it, but at least give us that. And then if you want to update it, you're welcome to do that. And then if you have a co-presenter, this is where you would enter that information. A lot of times people at this stage of the game don't really know who their co-presenter is going to be, and that's okay. Just give us your information, and then later you can add co-presenter even after you've submitted, even after the deadline. In the fall even, you can add co-presenter details. So don't worry about that if you don't have your co-presenter information yet. And as a primary presenter, I do know that if I add a presenter at any time, it is my responsibility to keep them updated on the status, because they are not notified by our platform here of anything that happens with the status of the presentation. It would be only you, the primary presenter. So when those are all clicked, you can do save and continue, and it takes you to the second part of the submission process, which is actually about your presentation itself. So the information on this page is going to tell you about the main criteria that reviewers are looking for when they are reviewing the presentation. And then also, it's going to give you information about strands and pathways. So now our strands and pathways are the themes of our symposium, and there's 4 main themes, and they're here in bold. Your presentation will align with one of these, so you will choose which of these your presentation most aligns with. It could be that it bridges a few, but maybe 1 or 2, but you do need to choose one here that your presentation most prominently addresses. And so I'm going to just pick something here for my demonstration. If you want more details than what we give you here, because you're having difficulty deciding which one, there is a link here, and it will give you detailed descriptions of the strands and pathways and what participants would expect to see in that kind of presentation. Our very catchy title, I will say, my monkey is not here today. And now we have our pathways. These are basically keywords that participants can use as they're trying to navigate and decide what presentations most aligned to their goals of why they're coming to the symposium. So you want to select up to 3. It could be just 1, but up to 3 to help them decide if this is going to meet their criteria for what they're looking for. And then we also need to know, is this a presentation that is possible to give in a virtual setting, an in-person setting, or both? And I'm going to have that mine could be in either a virtual or an in-person setting. And then which presentation format is best for your submission? So I talked about these briefly earlier on the slide deck. There's hands-on, there's interactive, and there's facilitated. Those are 3 of the 4 types of presentations we're looking for. It could be up to a 60-minute, a full hour session. And with hands-on, we're looking for them to be able to build, design, make models, actively get engaged that way. The interactive is also something that's where they're engaged. Maybe they're doing pollings, they're up and around working with each other. And then facilitated, where they're problem solving, or maybe there's a panel discussion. There's another type of presentation format, and that's a shorter format. It's really intended for a deeper conversation on a topic, or something that's more differentiated, and you want to have a smaller group because it wouldn't work as well in a larger group setting. So you will choose which of these ends up being the one that best aligns with what your goals are for your presentation. And then we do want to know that if, based on scheduling, would you be willing to adapt it to something that is longer and shorter? And so you would need to indicate that. And then which content standards are you addressing in your presentation, if that's applicable?
And Karen, I'm just going to jump in on the lengths of the sessions. If we have a virtual event, these are up to 60 minutes, but I can assure you if we go virtual, our longer format will be much shorter. It'll be in like the 30 to 40 minute range. And our roundtables will be shorter as well. They'll be more like a 10 to 15 minute quick talk. So just keep that in mind. Flexibility is key, and being willing to be adaptable. We really appreciate people that are able to be flexible and adapt as we consider our venue and changes.
Thank you, Glennon.
Yeah, no problem. Any other things before we really open up to questions, Karen?
I think that we've already discussed the detailed, and we've discussed the brief description. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that if you do already have some materials that you would like to share with the reviewer, you can upload those or share the links here, and those also would be pulled into the app later after your presentation is accepted.
And then at the bottom, it's save and continue. That'll take you to a review page, and then there'll be a submit button, which will take you to a confirmation. So a couple of questions have come up already, and I'm going to try to address those. But as more questions come up, please feel free to type them in. So the first question is from Gerardo. On ballpark number, how many presentation submissions do you receive per year, and how many or percentage of those are chosen to be put on or be part of the symposium? So this varies greatly from year to year. So I can't really get into super specifics. We do have hundreds of presentations, proposals submitted, and it is constrained by the schedule and the number of breakout rooms. And so I can't really give like a year over year specific percentage. We have been able to accept hundreds of presentations. In this year, the unique thing about this year is if we do go virtual, the physical room constraints get changed to whatever platform constraints we have. But we do, it's not such an arduous process. You're not applying to get into Harvard where only 3% are getting in. It's much more manageable. And one of the other factors that drives presentation selection is we do try to balance out what pathways are selected and what strands are selected so that there's balance across the board. And then Paul is asking, are there any people presenting on personal finance for math? We have a budgeting game, a stock market platform that can be used for all subjects to do research and careers plus managing money. If that's something you're passionate about, Paul, I would highly recommend submitting a proposal. I think, it's a topic that has come up, but it's not something that I've seen a lot of. And more than anything, what I would emphasize as people are considering whether to present is present something you're passionate about. That is the most important thing. We're not trying to look into a crystal ball and know what the field has. The presentation proposals that come in really show us what's important to the field and to educators right now. And if that's a topic that's important to you right now, definitely submit a proposal. And I would encourage to think about, how do you integrate personal finance into other content areas so that it is widely applicable to a lot of people. Other questions, and what I'm going to do now is you should be able to unmute yourself if you have a question. So we'll hang out as long as there are questions. We can hang out for another, we're supposed to end by 9:30, but if there are more questions, we can hang out. Feel free to, this is the conclusion. I do have a quick feedback survey that I'm going to add to the chat. So if people can give us a quick thought, that would be great as we do more of these. But other questions from people, whether it's via the chat or taking yourself off mute and asking a question. We'd love to answer any questions that you have.
I have a question.
Sure.
If we do go virtual, which seems quite likely, I'm wondering about technology and involving a group. Can we have any idea in advance how many people we can anticipate? Because that will help us manage, if I have to figure out how to set up breakout rooms for small group discussions, that sort of thing. So I guess I'd like to know if that's possible to find out how many people may be attending, and if there's going to be some technology support from you guys to suggest how we might deal with larger numbers than, can all fit on one screen to have
Sure.
a conversation.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Yes, if we, not only if we go virtual, but in either format, we're going to be providing presenter training in the fall to help gear up with some best tips and practices about your presentation. But absolutely, in a virtual format, we would provide both presenter support and technical support during the event as well. We don't have a sense of the numbers of participants yet. This event has typically hosted anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 people in the live in-person format. We would hope that we might have a few more attend in a virtual format. And the questions around constraints and breakout rooms and the like will be, we're working on looking at a variety of different platforms to use for the virtual event. And so that'll likely drive the answer to those questions. But certainly, if you're looking to do small group discussions and have breakout rooms, we can make that a possibility. If it's a breakout that has 200 participants, we would let you know that as well. But frankly, a lot of the registration will happen later in the fall, and so we may not have that information until very close to the event.
Thank you. It's something I'm considering when I'm trying to figure out how to actually present what I have in mind, and if it has to go virtual. Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Gerardo, go ahead.
Hey, two quick questions, and I realize everything's changing on a weekly basis, sometimes even a daily basis. If the symposium does go online, will the price for the ticket, go down, as there's not going to be cost of physical, all the physical costs? And second question would be, if it is a physical thing, being part of the symposium allows us to build, help our peers with resources and knowledge and all that. But there are costs to transportation, being able to either take a day off or pay for the subs, cost of the ticket and all that. So I'm wondering, what are some of the perks or advantages besides being able to network and contribute, which is important, as far as being a presenter in the symposium, when it's going to take us a lot of costs to be able to be part of it too?
Sure. So yes, the ticket price will go down pretty significantly if it's a virtual event. Some of the advantages to being a participant at the event in a virtual format that we haven't, when we've done the in-person format, the thing that we've heard is, I wanted to go to 15 breakouts and there's only 6 in the schedule because there were multiple happening at the same time. So I couldn't get to everything I wanted to go to. And in a virtual format, we're going to have people will have access to all of the keynotes, all of the breakouts, all the stuff for multiple months. So it will be both a great engaging in-person experience where there's networking opportunities. You can do one-to-one networking with people. You can visit an exhibitor, visit a partner organization, etc. But you'll also have access to the content for much longer and easier access to it. Does that address your question?
I think so. So you said if we were a presenter and if this was a virtual thing, then it would be easier access to be able to contact the other people as far as networking?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there will be a platform that we use that has networking while the event is going on. And then there will be an app, and I mean, all of our presenters will be providing contact information. So you could reach out to them both during the event, but also outside of the event as well. I've got a couple of questions that have come in through the chat. Looks like Karen may have addressed it, but I'm going to raise them up anyways. Are presentations specific to a K-12 audience? Do participants from higher education participate? Yeah, we have I would say most of our audience is K-12. We do have institutes of higher education participating. In particular, we have pre-service teachers coming to participate quite a bit. We do have presentations from institutes of higher education, and we had, I think, somewhere between 30 and 50 institutes of higher education represented last year. So there is a healthy participant group there. Paul's asking, if you're an exhibitor, does that help your chances of presenting? If we have a virtual format, will we be able to follow up with them afterwards? So presentations, we are always encouraging that presentations are presented by fellow educators. And so if you're someone that wants to exhibit and show off your product, I would encourage you to find a partner educator to do a presentation with that is using your product in the classroom and can really speak to how it's being used, as opposed to trying to present as the representative from the organization. If we do go virtual, we are working on what the exhibitor experience will look like, and there will be opportunities to engage with participants and follow up with them afterwards, for sure. Any additional questions? Want to be respectful of everyone's time. It's 9:33, but we're happy to hang out.
I noticed on the website it says that the event has been canceled. So just wanted to make you aware in case you weren't. When I went in on the website, it said the event has been canceled.
Which
It said
website?
the STEAM Symposium?
Yes.
Can you send a link to us? Because that's concerning. Yeah, that shouldn't be the case. We really appreciate you raising that up.
Yes, I'll just put it in the chat.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions that we can address for folks?
I did put a link into our website. I see what you mean. I think I will contact our event planners, but I think that they've just made a mistake here. That is.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the event planners transition platforms, and I think this is the old platform, and so it's not a cancellation of the event; it's a cancellation on the platform. So we just need to make sure to find a way to get that down.
Yeah, you may want to check a couple other places because that was the first thing that came up. One of the first things that came up. I just did a quick search.
Okay.
That's great to know. I really appreciate that. Yeah, they upgraded to a different
It
version of the
migrated, yeah.
platform.
Okay. Any other questions before we close out? Thank you so much, Barbara and others, for participating, and Gerardo for your questions. It's been a wonderful discussion, and we certainly hope this has been helpful and you'll feel confident about submitting a proposal.
I look forward to working with you. Thanks so much.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.